Who doesn't love caffeine? Whether that's a cup of coffee after a long commute or 2 scoops of pre-workout after a full Red Bull, 80% of the population uses caffeine every single day. If, like me, you find yourself on the more, let's say, extreme side of that scale, then it might be time to start thinking about the root of the problem itself. This video then is not about caffeine, but rather sleep and how we can get enough sleep so that we don't have to rely on stimulants to get us through the day. I'm sure you're aware that sleep is important for overall health, but perhaps you're not so aware how important sleep is for muscle growth and for fat loss. In a recent study, 10 overweight adults were put into 2 groups. One group had 5.5 hours of sleep and one group had 8.5 hours of sleep. Now, both groups lost weight due to the fact that they were both in a calorie deficit. However, the group with less sleep lost 60% more muscle and 50% less fat. These numbers might seem shocking at first, but this study really just emphasises how important sleep is. For the average adult, a good night's sleep will probably fall anywhere from 7 to 9 hours. You might think that you can run just fine on 6 hours, but you're probably wrong about that. Only about 1% of the population have a genetic mutation that allows them to comfortably survive on 6 hours or less of sleep. In all likelihood, you're not part of this 1%, and actually what you need to do is go to bed earlier and stop watching TikToks at night where you've got David Goggins at the top and Subway Surfers on the bottom and about a million things going on, and instead just get more sleep. If you're regularly getting less than 6 hours of sleep, I'd argue that the best possible thing you could do for any muscle gain or fat loss is start getting that extra sleep. I'd even go so far as to say that there's no amount of steroids or any kind of trick you could pull out of the book that is going to do you any better than just getting that sleep which you desperately need. That's how vital sleep is. So now that we're both on the same page and you're going to get your 8 hours every night, we can start to think about how to get this 8 hours and the quality of those 8 hours. And as with many things, the first and most important factor is having a routine. If you don't have a bedtime, you're not going to go to bed on time. It sounds simple, but it really is true. If you don't hold yourself accountable, then 1 second you'll be checking the weather app before you go to sleep, and the next it'll be 3 in the morning and you'll be watching AI voiceovers of Gareth Southgate calling Harry Kane a bell end.
I guess the boys shouldn't have smoked that spliff at half time.
To make sure you stick to your routine, I would also advise exploring the market when it comes to alarms for your phone. For a long time I used the Apple clock and just set alarms on my phone as regular, but they're very easy to snooze, they're not very annoying, and you can carry on sleeping if you want to. The alarm that I use is called Alarmy, and it makes me do 3 math equations before I can wake up. It vibrates, and you can't snooze it, and it also has some pretty annoying ringtones. Now, it's all well and good for me to tell you to go to bed on time and set an alarm clock, but what if sleep just isn't that easy for you? There are a few things that you can do to make your night routine a little bit more streamlined. Ideally, you don't really want to be looking at a screen for the last 30 minutes before you go to sleep. In this time, I've found that reading a book can be something that really helps tire you out and get you ready for bed. If that's not your style, you can go on Spotify and put on a podcast or an audiobook. And a little tip for you is that Spotify has a built-in bedtime timer built into audiobooks and podcasts. So if you want to go to bed in half hour, for example, you could put a half-hour bedtime timer on, and as it gets up to that 30th minute, the podcast or the audiobook's just going to fade out, and by that time you'll probably be asleep anyway. Although I can't say that I've ever got that far. That's about all I need when it comes to getting to bed. I find that if I have half an hour without a screen and just do some reading, I will fall asleep pretty easily, but there's lots of other things you can do. My girlfriend is a big advocate of using eye masks, and there's lots of other things you can try, like nose strips to help you breathe better, or earplugs if you struggle with sound, but I can't really speak to any of those things because I've never used any of them. If you can take one thing away from this video, it's that sleep is far more important for your fitness than you're probably giving it credit for. Just by being aware of that fact, you're going to start treating sleep a bit more seriously and giving it more credit. Once you do that, you're going to start feeling better at night, better in the morning, and just better in your day-to-day life. But that is definitely no excuse not to have a Red Bull.